What's going on, guys, and welcome to my audio review for the September 20th, 2024 edition of WWE Friday Night SmackDown, the second show of the new era on USA Network. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. I did not watch this show live. I watched last week's show live. I watched the majority of the show live, actually, probably 3/4 of it live. I missed the final, the second half of the women's match and then the main event. So I actually don't know if they had an overrun this week. I assume they did not. But I did read the other day that there's a chance that they could have that overrun going forward. Maybe not for every single episode, but it's available if they need it. Whereas on Fox, they had that hard out at 9:57 Eastern Time p.m. Due to the news airing at 10 p.m. So at least on USA, a lot like NXT, which is scheduled to go every single week until 10:07. That has been the case for the last 4 or 5 years now. SmackDown, I'm not sure if it's scheduled to end at 10:07 p.m. Eastern Time every week, but at least they have that option if need be. On that same note, though, as far as SmackDown being extended and stuff like that, we got to address this off the bat. And I just have to mention this. For as solid as SmackDown has been, on the whole, because some stretches of SmackDown in 2024 have been better than others. Lately, it's been fine. Some other stretches, not as interesting. Other stretches, white hot. It doesn't really matter. As a 3-hour show, SmackDown would not work. The report on Thursday from WrestleVotes Radio, pretty credible source is WrestleVotes. He's pretty spot on with a lot of stuff. He has inside sources within the company. So I would put some stock within this actually being a thing. That starting in January, WWE might be expanding SmackDown to 3 hours on USA Network. And then he followed that up, I think, on Friday by saying, unless he said it in the initial report and people just missed it, that it would be back to 2 hours by next June. I don't care if it's for 5 months. I don't care if it's for good. I don't care if it's for 2 fucking weeks. Even if just 1 week. SmackDown has never been and should never be a 3-hour show. It is bad enough that Raw is 3 hours. It will be such a breath of fresh air come October 7th when Raw goes back to being 2 hours and SmackDown is 2 hours for the remainder of the year, seemingly. And then starting in January, Raw's back to 3 hours on Netflix, which is, obviously not ideal, but we're used to Raw being 3 hours at this point. We've had it for 12 years. I get it. I don't love it, but I get it. And hopefully they see the positive reaction, and hopefully the shows are better when they go to 2 hours, and that kind of, convinces them. Because on Netflix, too, they don't have to have a hard out at a certain time. It's a streaming service. Not to say the show should be 5 hours, but, they can play around with it, make it 2.5 hours, 2:45, and not always 3 on the dot. But with SmackDown, that also apparently will be going to 3 hours in January, if only temporarily. I'm not sure why to combat, I honestly have no clue. And it's clear that USA Network is the problem. They were the reason why SmackDown, or rather Raw, went to 3 hours in the first place back in 2012. They offered WWE a lot of money. I don't know if they forced them to do it. I don't know what the case was back then. But they have a lot of ad money coming in from that third hour, regardless of what the ratings look like. Even compared to 12 years ago, the ratings are in the fucking toilet. And they've stayed steady in recent years, but, compared to a dozen years ago, the ratings are down year over year. And they have been down drastically for a while now. But they don't care. They still get their ad money from that third hour, so that really hasn't deterred them from changing their formula of making the show 2 hours again. And not only that, but they might be making that a problem for SmackDown now, too. Now, that SmackDown's on USA Network. Now, NXT was also expanded to 2 hours on USA. I still wish that was a hour-long show. I kind of wish they went to an hour when they went to NXT 2.0 back in 2021. That did not happen. As a 2-hour show now, it is what it is. They have such a big roster on NXT, I can't really imagine them going back to 1 hour. And that was also on the network era, when you didn't have to really worry about commercials and shit like that. So, I guess I get it, but SmackDown as a 3-hour show, going back to what I said earlier, simply does not work. Especially if it's going to be the type of shows that we got on this show. And this show was fine. I thought it was along the same lines of last week, where I enjoyed it for what it was. I liked the less is more approach. There was some solid storyline progression and stuff like that. But I still don't think, and even with the call-ups and people being moved from Raw to SmackDown, it doesn't matter. I still don't think it works as a 3-hour. Raw doesn't even work as a 3-hour show, but SmackDown especially. With the state that SmackDown is in right now, and that's not to say it's a bad state. There is some good stuff going on. I like LA Knight as the United States champion. The Bloodline stuff, they're moving along, albeit slowly, but they're moving it along. Now that Roman Reigns is back and Cody Rhodes is champion, we have an active champion on the show. We're in a much better space with SmackDown than we were a year ago when Roman Reigns as world champion was never really on the show. Logan Paul as United States champion was never really on the show. They have largely solved those issues, but as a 3-hour show, it still does not work. And the bottom line is this Bloodline stuff is still dominating SmackDown. And I don't know if it's like the warped Bloodline, Roman Reigns superfan, WWE superfan, SmackDown superfan mentality. I'm not exactly sure what it is. But honestly, any positivity that, oh man, we're going to get 3 hours of more Bloodline segments, that doesn't make it better. That doesn't make it better. There's a lot of weeks where it feels like we're seeing the same thing. And we've had some good matches on SmackDown. Even on this episode, I enjoyed it for what it was. But like, some of the Bloodline stuff, specifically with Kevin Owens, just feels like it's treading water. The main event felt like we have seen it before. Owens and the Profits, I'm almost positive we have. I think we got this match a number of months ago on SmackDown. Owens and the Profits, Owens and DIY versus any incarnation of the Bloodline. Maybe it wasn't Jacob Fatu, it was probably Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga and Tongaloa. But still, it doesn't matter. It's all the same stuff. And I enjoy it for what it is. But when you get it every single week without any real progression, because Triple H really loves to drag stuff out, which does have its advantages, you're left with a fairly mundane show where you're not really missing much by not tuning in. Now, that being said, all of that being said, I didn't think this was a bad show. I thought it was solid for what it was. I really liked the Roman Reigns Cody Rhodes video package. I thought that was the best part of the show. It ended up being a solid, enjoyable show, but we have seen better from SmackDown in 2024. So, the opening match was LA Knight and Andrade for the United States Championship. A very good match between those two. I thought they worked well together. The closing stretch with LA Knight botching his top rope move where he jumps to the top rope in kind of one seamless motion, he fucked it up twice. And Michael Cole did mention after the match was over that, it's hot in there and it gets sweaty, which is completely true. And I like the move. I think it looks cool, but he's messed it up enough to where it's like he should probably, I've seen people kind of compare it to Kurt Angle where he used to do something similar, but he wouldn't do it in one fell swoop. He would kind of scurry, I saw someone say, run up to the top rope by running up each of the other ropes or the second rope, whatever, and then do it, like Shelton Benjamin would do from time to time. Actually, I don't know if he would do it in one fell swoop too, but, I know Kurt Angle wouldn't just jump up there. He would run up the ropes or whatever. I feel like that might work better. I just don't want him getting hurt or his opponent or whatever. I think it's a cool move, but if you mess it up enough, I know he messed it up against Sheamus last year and maybe one other time as well. It's noticeable. But the overall match I thought was good for what it was. Andrade did earn this opportunity by beating Carmelo Hayes last week. Finishing off what we thought was the best of 5 series. They're having another match next week. And I should mention this too. Knight and Andrade shook hands afterward. There was no Carmelo Hayes interference, which I appreciated. I thought we would get interference from Carmelo, leading to a triple threat, which could still happen. I hope it still does. That would be a really fun match as well. But after the match, Andrade went for it was just bizarre. It looked like he went for a handshake. Knight went for a fist bump. I don't know if that was a shoot or just them, not getting along in storyline and teasing tension. It was very strange and awkward. But we did see Hayes confront Andrade backstage later on in the show. And it was one of those legit LOL moments for me, at least me personally. When Carmelo was, he mentioned the Lakers losing in the best of 5 series, whatever it was, choking. Whenever it mattered most. I'm not a big basketball guy, so I'm not exactly sure what he was referencing. But he just said, just put the fries in the bag, bro. You're washed. And obviously that's not true, but I thought it was fucking funny. The put the fries in the bag, bro, is that new meme that people are sharing now, and it's so stupid, but it's funny. And I thought that was a really funny line from Carmelo. So that brawl backstage led to the match being announced for next week. Carmelo and Andrade, Part 6. And I honestly have no complaints. They work so well together, and maybe we get some sort of a stipulation match out of it, maybe on pay-per-view. I doubt it. I doubt they put the 7th match on pay-per-view, but they're going at it again next week, and they are accounting like, oh yeah, Andrade leading the series 3-2. Like, they're making each match matter, and it's not like they're just facing each other a million times. They're counting the wins and losses, which I think is really, really cool, so I'm looking forward to that. They did not announce this for next week. There was a video package at the end of the episode with Chelsea Green and preparing to pretending to take out trash and whatever. It was entertaining for what it was. They did not announce that for next week, but they did announce for 2 weeks Chelsea Green and Michin for a dumpster match, which they technically announced on SmackDown Lowdown first last week, and then they made it clear here. I don't know why it's happening in 2 weeks and not next week, but it's happening in 2 weeks on SmackDown. The second match, or actually before we even got to the second match, that was when they did the Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns video package, face-off. I'm not exactly sure what you would even call it. But like most people, I thought it was really, really well done. Now, was it dramatic? Was it over the top? Yes and yes. But I thought it was really cool. Like, it gave me that cinematic movie feel. It felt like a fucking movie trailer. They were standing face-to-face in the Georgia Dome, where Roman Reigns used to play football. Obviously, Cody Rhodes is from Georgia. And they acknowledged all of that. And they acknowledged, no pun intended, acknowledge me, whatever. Roman Reigns explained why he would team with Cody and why Cody would team with him. He just wants to trust him. And he said, this is not your company or belt anymore, blah, blah, blah. And it honestly felt like they were building towards another Mania match between the two, which makes me worry. And it would not be the worst thing. But if we are headed for a third match, where if they win at Bad Blood, and they probably will, it's Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, and I would probably put the Bloodline over. They kind of need a win, but whatever. Maybe if Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns were to win, maybe that does set up another match between the two for the undisputed WWE Championship, either a Crown Jewel or a Survivor Series, Saturday night's main event in December, whatever. I hope not. A third match should happen, but not anytime soon. I can see why it would. I just think it would be silly to, unless you have interference, which it probably would, a third match should be the deciding match. Because both matches, the first two matches when Roman Reigns was the heel and Cody Rhodes was the babyface, the third match would see both of them as the babyface. There should be no interference in that third match. But honestly, what I was thinking was that you could save that third match for later down the road, which inevitably will happen, I think, where Roman Reigns is the babyface, but Cody Rhodes is the heel. Either he turns heel or he, turns heel in the match or turns heel beforehand. I think them running it back with the roles reversed would be really, really interesting. So I hope they save it for that and don't give it away at fucking Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia, but we'll see. But yeah, I don't even really know how to sum it up exactly, but I thought the video package they did on the show with those two men was really, really good stuff. And it did leave me looking forward more to that tag team match of Bad Blood than I was previously. So I thought it accomplished its mission in that respect. We saw Apollo Crews go one-on-one once again with Giovanni Vinci. If you thought this would be where Vinci got his big win back and got back on the right track and redeemed himself from that embarrassing re-debut a couple of weeks ago, you were as wrong as I was. This was yet another loss for Vinci. This time they had an actual match. Vinci did not come out with the tracksuit, with the glasses. He was all business here, and he still fucking lost. He lost clean. It wasn't even as if Vinci lost to Crews quickly and decisively 2 weeks ago, and then Vinci beat the shit out of him, beat the fuck out of him afterward or whatever. No, he just let him go. And then he beat him up after this. Who cares? He lost twice, and it's already at a point where no one really cares. And that's how just the world works nowadays. And, there's a lot to be said about attention span and people being fickle, fans being fickle. That's been the case for a long time with, the quick attention span of certain fans and people in general and turning on things so quickly after embracing them and whatever. But I don't really think that's the case here. People genuinely have no reason to care about this man right here. And it's not even as if they're building up Apollo Crews for something bigger. Apollo Crews has been in the same spot more or less for the last fucking decade in this company. He is not moving up in the ranks on SmackDown. They're just doing this to, I can't even say ruin Vinci because he wasn't exactly a top star before this, but they're just not giving him a chance. And at this point, I don't think they will. Even if he wins the third match, I still think people do not give a fuck. Especially when you lose to Apollo Crews, who has just been established as a no-name loser on the show. I think Apollo Crews said on the SmackDown Lowdown or a backstage video or whatever a week or two ago, he hadn't won, maybe on SmackDown. I don't know if he included Raw. I'm not sure. Probably included Raw too. He had not won on WWE TV, not counting NXT, since 2021, which would check out. That was back when he was Intercontinental Champion. He moved to NXT in 2022. He moved back to Raw in 2023. I don't remember him winning a single fucking match on Raw in 2023, aside from main event. So that would make sense. That's bad. That's bad for Vinci. So I thought that was dumb. What can you even say at this point? Who can even care? We had Kevin Owens out next, who was shown watching the video package with Cody and Roman, and he teased that he would address the situation and Cody teaming with Roman, because he obviously has had a lot of bad blood, no pun intended, with Roman for the past 5 years. He has spent the last even dating back to 2017, he's had issues with Roman. But Owens, for the last 4 years, on and off, has been feuding with the fucking Bloodline. I mean, he started feuding with them in 2020. He had those early matches with them in 2021. At the end of 2022, they had issues. And in 2023, they had issues. They have issues now. It's like it just never fucking ends. This man cannot escape the Bloodline. And I don't think he will until he turns heel. Until he turns heel or goes to Raw. And even when he was on Raw, he was still feuding with the Bloodline in 2022, 2023. He could not escape Roman Reigns in the Bloodline. And he still can't. Because before he could give his, response, his rebuttal or whatever to Cody and Roman teaming at Bad Blood, he was interrupted by the Bloodline. Sans Solo Sikoa, though, he was not there. I'm not sure why. I don't know why Solo wasn't on the show. Roman did not come out in person. Cody ended up coming out in person, later on in the show. Solo was not there. I mean, didn't really make much of a difference to me, but he was not there. So Jacob Fatu comes out. Tama Tonga did that. Yeah. Bullshit he's been doing for the last couple of months, which I think is fucking funny. I don't really care personally. But he was doing that shit, and it's just so dumb. But it's funny, though. Tongaloa was with them as well. Jacob Fatu. I'm just not over how stupid that fucking noises that he does. Yeah. I can't do it as well as he does. But they interrupted Owens, and they were about to beat him up before DIY made the save. They brawled, and they set up a 6-man tag team match for the main event. So that was that. We had a women's tag team match after that. Bayley and Naomi battling Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton in a tornado tag team match. They added that last part of the stipulation earlier in the day, which I like, because the whole thing they established last week was if either Bayley or Naomi pick up the win for their team, I guess regardless of whether they pin Nia or Tiffany, then that person can then challenge for the WWE Women's Championship at Bad Blood. Okay, but if either one of them get pinned, then that person will be gone from SmackDown permanently. So they really raised the stakes here. I like that. I honestly was of the mindset that I thought Naomi might get pinned. Even Bayley too, but Raw needs the depth. They really don't have a lot of, meaningful players in the Raw women's division right now. Pure Fusion Collective is just trash. There's Rhea, there's Liv, which is great, but everyone else doesn't really matter. Like, I like Lyra, Zelina's good. Natalya, who gives a fuck? But like everyone else, okay, they're just kind of there, They need more meaningful players in that Raw women's division. And if they switched over Bayley or Naomi, that wouldn't solve the issue, but it would help. And that just didn't happen, which is fine. I mean, I just kind of figured Bayley would win here. It feels like they're stretching out the inevitable. So both Bayley and Naomi ended up pinning Nia. It was a good match. I enjoyed it for what it was. Both Bayley and Naomi, which I was not expecting, honestly, of all the outcomes here, they did not decisively pin. I mean, I guess they did, but they both did simultaneously. So I thought it would be announced that it would be a triple threat. And I guess that could still happen. I hope it doesn't happen. We just saw Bayley, Naomi, and Tiffany earlier this year. Can we just get a singles match? And I know we got Bayley and Naomi, or rather Bayley and Nia, at SummerSlam. No disrespect to Naomi, but Nia and Naomi at this current point does not seem interesting. Like, it should probably be Nia and Bayley, and Nia goes over Bayley again, decisively, one-on-one. No Tiffany interference, and maybe there is, I don't know. I would just much rather see, personally, Bayley, Naomi, or Bayley, there's just too many fucking N names here. Naomi, Nia, and, Tiffany, I guess she has an N in her name, but it doesn't start with an N, but anyway. Bayley and Nia. I would actually rather see that one-on-one than a triple threat. I just feel like that's just not necessary. So we're getting Bayley and Naomi next week in a number one contenders match. It honestly kind of feels like the rehashed build for that triple threat at Backlash, where they did Naomi and Tiffany, and this is all the same women, by the way, except for Nia. But Naomi beat Tiffany to earn that opportunity. They did Bayley and Naomi on SmackDown, and that led to a triple threat at Backlash. If they do that again, that's just fucking lazy. I'm sorry, but that's just fucking lazy. So I hope that's not the case. I hope Bayley beats Naomi. You could do Naomi event against Nia, but I would just end the Bayley-Nia stuff and move on from there by having Nia beat Bayley at Bad Blood. And then maybe you can do Nia and Naomi on SmackDown, or at the next pay-per-view or whatever, shortly thereafterward. But I would do Nia and Bayley and finish that off first, personally. So everyone involved can hopefully move on from that. Kevin Owens and the Street Profits against the Bloodline. So I mentioned DIY earlier. DIY was attacked backstage before the bout. So the Street Profits stepped up as Owens' partners instead. A good match, but again, I feel like we've seen this before. And it's good action. I can't shit on AEW for having good wrestling but matches that don't matter and not do the same thing for WWE. This shit doesn't matter. It feels like it's just busy work to keep these people busy until we get to the next major development, which has got to be coming soon. So, good match, ends in a no contest, stupid finish. I'm not even really sure how it ended in a no contest. I mean, it wasn't a DQ, it just kind of ended, which is fucking stupid. But Cody Rhodes, or DIY, attempted to make the save to no reaction, which was sad, and they got attacked. Cody Rhodes comes out and evens the playing field, and they get the better of the Bloodline. And then Owens is the one that has the chair in the end, teases attacking Cody with it, and then doesn't do it. So, I mean, I don't know. They're really doing a good job of keeping people on their toes as far as, is Owens going to turn? Are they going to save it for Orton? I still think they will, but it looks like it might be Owens. And honestly, after all the times they've teased Owens turning on Cody, it probably is going to happen at this point. And you know what? That's totally fine with me. If that's how they can switch up Owens, at least, you know what? If it gets him away from the Bloodline, then so fucking be it. Maybe him and Orton turn together, or at some point, I don't know. But they need heels on this show. Owens would fulfill that spot, or Orton, or both. They have AJ and Nakamura. Nakamura at this point just means nothing. We have not seen that man since fucking April. I think he's probably not even coming back at this point. Like, why has he been off the show? Did they have no spot for him on SmackDown? It makes no sense. They brought back Giovanni fucking Vinci before they brought back Nakamura. And then with AJ, I just have no idea. I mean, AJ, we've already seen AJ and Cody. We've seen AJ and Owens. So it's not exactly... We've seen AJ and Orton. We've seen all those feuds before, so I'm not even exactly sure what you do with him when he comes back. We've seen AJ and LA Knight even. They feuded for months. I'm not even really sure what you do with AJ either, unless you trade him to Raw or whatever. I would put him in TNA for a one-off and face Josh Alexander at Bound for Glory, but that's just me. So anyway, that was the end of SmackDown. I like the show. They really got to move this shit along, though. I just feel like they're taking their sweet-ass time with some of the shit when it could just really be a quick angle and move forward. Not everything has to be a year-long arc. I mean, some stuff can be a couple months, 6 months. It doesn't have to be a year-long thing. I don't want to wait. I don't want to be sitting here in November talking about, is Owens going to turn or not? I don't want to wait another 2 fucking months. And we shouldn't have to. It's not even, you got to be patient. It's not even a case of that. I mean, if it was, then I would, and I'm typically the first advocate of it's coming in due time. And then it happens, and then they miss the mark. And most of the times they don't miss the mark, but with this one, I hope they don't. I just don't want to be sitting here for the next 6 months watching SmackDowns that don't matter until we get to a point where Owens has to turn heel. But overall, I thought the show was fun for what it was. Thank you guys for checking out my review of the show. I appreciate it. As I mentioned before, SmackDown Lowdown now airs on Friday nights, not on Saturday afternoons, which is actually better that I can watch it earlier, review it earlier, get it up earlier. I'm busy today, so I can't watch and review the show today, but it should be up at some point, hopefully tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, check out all the other content on the channel from the past week. Hashtag GSM for GM, hashtag AskGSM, a lot of hashtag shows. My Raw Talk review, my interview with Donovan Dijak, that went up several days ago, I think about a week ago at this point, actually. But check out all of that stuff here on the channel. The latest episode of WrestleRant Radio, which will go into more depth about the 3 hours of SmackDown and all the latest news from the wrestling world on next week's show. But the latest episode as well from Thursday that went up yesterday also has a lot to discuss as well. So check that out when you get a chance. Have a great weekend, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.